Right, so as if we can't be more disgusted at Keir Starmer over his vile attack advert exploiting child sex exploitation that I've covered in my previous video, it wasn't even his first appalling move this week, as he has welcomed news that the EHRC are to review the Equalities Act, the goal of which is to change the act so that transgender people are only recognised in that act by the gender they are assigned at birth. So it's an attack on the transgender community. Why are Labour welcoming this then? Well, the same reason that awful ruddy advert got put out by them attacking Sunak over sex offenders, because they think it'll win them votes. They think it'll improve their polling, because the focus groups that Keir Starmer leans on so much have spoken. The Rosie Duffields and the J.K. Rowlings of this country, the TERFs, having more influence than, say, people who give a damn about other people being allowed to self-identify as they see fit. Freedom of expression. You ever hear of it, Keith? We're in this unenviable position right now whereby Keir Starmer and co are going into these local elections thinking people are going to vote for them anyway to get the Tories out. As such, they're not feeling like they're under much pressure, they think, to change tack on any positions they feel like taking. They feel safe in showing what they really think, it would appear, if they think we'll vote for them anyway, despite all of this. You want them to change their tune on anything here? Don't vote for them then in the upcoming elections. Take your vote elsewhere, because until Starmer gets it through his brill-creamed head that he can't behave like a petty dictator and that he actually has to win votes by appealing to ordinary voters and not just decide for himself what he wants to do, not just expect these votes either. He isn't going to change his ways because he's under no pressure to. So let's squeeze him a bit. Anyway, why are the EHRC doing this? It kind of casts a different light on them too, doesn't it? Looking to oppress some people's rights after all the hoo-ha over Jeremy Corbyn in relation to their report on Labour antisemitism, doesn't it? Firstly, should so much weight ever be lent to the findings of the EHRC? Well, for a start, the EHRC is not an independent body because it relies on the government for funding. It is another of those non-ministerial government departments I've spoken about before in other videos, entities associated with the Cabinet Office, but not directly overseen by a minister, though not truly independent either as a consequence. The likes of the Crown Prosecution Service is another of these bodies, watchdogs like Ofgem and Ofsted, the Charity Commission, HMRC, and there's more of them besides. You can Google the term if you like, they're all listed online. Anyway, key positions within this department are typically, or these departments as a whole, are typically appointed by government. And in the case of this department, indeed a new commissioner of the EHRC has just recently been appointed back in January. And the person who does that for this body is the Minister for Women and Equalities, always appoints such roles to the EHRC. And so, therefore, the new commissioner for the EHRC was appointed by right-wing former Tory leadership candidate Kemi Badenoch. Hacker Badenoch, for she once hacked Harriet Harman's laptop. Clearly top Tory credentials these days in their cesspit of a party. Corruption doesn't stray far either, as the person she appointed, Joanne Cash, is herself a former Tory candidate and indeed donated to Badenoch's leadership campaign. So Badenoch is appointed an ardent Tory and a personal supporter. I'm sure she's really, really qualified too. Anyway, she isn't the head of the EHRC. They were appointed back in 2020. And this is Baroness Faulkner of Margravine. And she sits in the House of Lords, but as a non-aligned member. Non-aligned politically doesn't mean she doesn't have views, though. And although she is head of the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, her views on transgender people are apparently that trans people simply should not have human rights. She's also previously admitted to not knowing the meaning of the word transphobe. And when she's the person supposedly in charge of protecting people suffering from transphobia, that isn't a good look, and unsurprisingly has on multiple occasions to date been subjected to calls to resign, not least again right now. But now it seems Faulkner wants to bin these bits of the Equality Act, having written to Kemi Badenoch about it in a move campaigners are calling recycled homophobia. So what could Tory Minister Badenoch rewrite the law as, which the EHRC would then be responsible for overseeing, and which Keir Starmer is already in agreement with? Doesn't leave much room for people to be on your side if you're trans, does it? Businesses, workplaces and public spaces would be able to ban trans people from using their facilities, likely meaning anywhere you'd like to go as a trans person, you'd end up having to call ahead to see if they'll serve you, and they'll be perfectly within their rights to refuse based on your self-identity and sexuality. The changes would also remove legal protections from trans women regarding misogyny in hiring, workplace sexism, and the gender pay gap. So more discrimination, not less. It would also enable trans people to be hidden in governmental statistics, which could be used as an excuse for further discrimination. Effectively, sex will be redefined by your biological sex at birth, end of story, and by doing that will restrict the freedoms and human rights protections to trans people available to everyone else. It is discrimination. It is purely to appease the "there are only two sexes" section of society, and is a blatant attack on self-identification, with all the damage to health and well-being that would come down the road as a result. So what can people do? Stop voting Tory and Labour. Obviously, they're both right-wing and they aren't on your side. LGBTQ plus groups are outraged, at least the genuine ones are. The EHRC is an utterly compromised political institution, not independent. You'd have been led to believe otherwise throughout the entire Corbyn era, but here we are. They're getting exposed for who they really are, a shield for right-wing politicians to hide behind and disguise what they really think of certain parts of society. It's yet another body meant to protect ordinary people's rights being used to do the opposite. Green Party co-leader Carla Denyer has written about this, actually, and raised several points worth adding to, I think, to what I've already said. She's also raised the point that the EHRC is a quango, government quango, basically, a government body in all but name, and is, I think, the only political leader who's actually gone on record and admitted so. She's also torn holes in Baroness Faulkner's letter to Badenoch, again highlighting the ignorance involved, saying it creates definitions of legal lesbians and legal gays, which do not exist in law, and again lends credence to those accusations of recycled homophobia if there's yet another way for homophobes to attack affected people. She also interestingly points out that it is an established law to be able to assume discrimination based on perception of a characteristic. So even if Equality Act changes get rammed through by Badenoch, they may not stand up in a court of law anyway, though still the move would hardly be a reassuring one to the trans community. The recommendations also leave no room for people who are intersex, which Denyer also pointed out, people having both male and female characteristics, which would be completely biological and wouldn't really fit this apparent black and white recommendation for change. Thank goodness some people in politics can actually talk some sense and are actually bothered to come across over the details. The EHRC are not fit for purpose. They're run appallingly. They're government patsies. The Tories already have issues with transphobic tendencies, but by agreeing with this move, Keir Starmer has shown his Labour lot do as well. There really isn't a fig leaf between them. Thanks for watching. If you appreciated this video, please do hit like and subscribe, leave a comment and hit the notification bell too so you don't miss the next one. Also look out for me on social media and other interesting stuff by clicking on the Linktree link in the comments below. And I will see you next time. Cheers, folks.